From what I understand, there were 2 agents who fired shots. We know one of the agents had 8 years experience, and we know he was a less lethal instructor and had this training. What did the other agent, what was his history, and are they both working right now, or are they on administrative leave?
Welcome back, folks, and buckle up. We're diving headfirst into a story that's going to make your blood boil and your head spin. ProPublica just dropped a bombshell, unmasking Border Patrol agents involved in the shooting. And the official response? It's a masterclass in bureaucratic doublespeak and outright absurdity. We're talking about special police tactics, taxpayer money being thrown around like confetti, and the kind of government secrecy that should alarm every single American no matter where you stand. This isn't just about one incident. It's about a pattern of behavior that erodes trust and smacks of authoritarianism. Let's dig in and expose the truth behind the headlines. Let's get after it.
All agents that were involved in that scene are working, not in Minneapolis, but in other locations. That's for their safety. There's this thing called doxing, and the safety of our employees is very important to us. So we're going to keep those employees safe.
Well, whether Bovino wants it or not, likes it or not, doesn't really matter, because the journalists over at ProPublica have released the names of the 2 Border Patrol agents who were involved in the fatal shooting of American citizen and VA nurse Alex Preti. Now, here's what we know. They're identified as 43-year-old Jesus Ochoa and 35-year-old Raymondo Gutierrez. We have some more details about them, but before we get to that, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Oh, for their safety, you say? Right. Doxing is the boogeyman now. Right. Give me a break. This is the oldest trick in the book. When you don't want to be accountable, you cry, safety. It's like a child hiding behind his parents' legs after breaking a vase. These aren't private citizens. These are federal agents, supposedly serving the public. When you sign up for a job in law enforcement, especially one that involves carrying a weapon and interacting with the public, you sign up for scrutiny, period. You sign up for accountability, period. The idea that protecting agents from doxing trumps transparency in a fatal shooting is not just absurd, it's dangerous. It creates a class of untouchable enforcers. What's next? Are we going to let politicians hide their identities behind, because of doxing? Are we going to let judges rule in secrecy? This isn't about safety, folks. It's about shielding incompetence, or worse, outright abuse from the public eye. It's a slap in the face to every American who believes in open government and individual liberty. We deserve to know who is wielding power in our name as a country. Period.
Yeah, I think that you guys are going to be curious to see who they are. And I think there's a reason why they try to hide things. So we'll get to that in 1 second. And then later, some of the victims of ICE and some of those heartbreaking stories. Yeah.
So ProPublica wanted to also include a note or an explanation for why they decided to publish the identities of these Border Patrol agents. And they write that we believe there are few investigations that deserve more sunlight and public scrutiny than this one, in which 2 masked agents fired 10 shots at Preti as he lay on the ground after being pepper sprayed. The policy of shielding officers' identities, particularly after a public shooting, is a stark departure from standard law enforcement protocols, according to lawmakers, state attorneys general, and former federal officials. Such secrecy, in our view, deprives the public of the most fundamental tool for accountability.
Exactly. Deprives the public of the most fundamental tool for accountability. Can I get an amen? This isn't rocket science, folks. This is basic civics 101. When government agents, especially ones armed, are involved in a fatal incident, their names, their records, and their identities are paramount to public trust and accountability. To argue otherwise is to argue for a system where the state operates above the law, shrouded in darkness. This isn't some fringe radical idea. Every lawmaker, state attorneys general, and former federal officials are saying this is a stark departure from standard law enforcement protocols. That's like saying a fish needs water to breathe. It's just common sense, folks. Just common sense. The left often champions transparency and accountability when it suits their narrative. But when it comes to federal power, suddenly it's all about safety and protocol. This is where the hypocrisy of the establishment truly shines. They want to control everything, but they don't want us to know who's doing the controlling. It's a classic power grab, pure and simple. We should all be demanding more, not less transparency from our government officials.
And I wholeheartedly agree with the editors over at ProPublica in their reasoning here. Remember, we're talking about Border Patrol agents. We're talking about government workers who are supposed to work for us, the American people. So the fact that they were shielding these individuals' identities is beyond problematic, given the fact that there should be accountability. These are supposed to be public servants. Now, a DHS spokesperson has confirmed that the agents have since been placed on leave. And today, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced that every DHS officer who is deployed to Minneapolis specifically will be issued a body cam. She did elaborate on other ICE agents and Border Patrol agents. She says that body-worn cameras are being expanded nationwide as funding becomes available. So it does seem like DHS to some extent is responding to the absolute fury that Americans are feeling over the violence that's been carried out by these Border Patrol and ICE agents. But even after the investigation was moved to the DOJ's Civil Rights Division, there was still a ton of unknown information here, including whether DHS has shared materials such as the body cam footage they have with investigators, whether they're allowing the state to conduct its own investigation. Still unclear about that. We know that initially that they certainly were blocking the state from being able to carry out their own investigation. Here's what we also do know as a result of the reporting from ProPublica. Ochoa is a Border Patrol agent who joined CBP in 2018. Gutierrez joined in 2014 and works for CBP's Office of Field Operations. He is assigned to a special response team which conducts high-risk operations like those of police SWAT units. Records show both men are from South Texas. Ochoa goes by Jesse, graduated from the University of Texas Pan American with a degree in criminal justice, and that's according to his ex-wife, Angelica Ochoa. A longtime resident of the Rio Grande Valley, Ochoa had for years dreamed of working for the Border Patrol and finally landed a job there, she said. So his ex-wife also says that by the time they separated in 2021, Ochoa had become a gun enthusiast, acquiring about 25 rifles, pistols, and shotguns. And that's what we know so far. What do you think, Cenk?
So, look, of course, I think it's a third world not to have badges and to cover up your face. We've actually seen it in developing countries where it's a tyrannical government and they don't want any of their secret police to be identified. Now, if you say, no, I kind of like that, maybe we should go backwards, right, and go into that. Well, then do you think that should apply to all the cops? Because, you're so worried about the doxing. Should we take away all the badges? Should we take away anything that identifies our cops? Maybe dress them up in burqas or something, ninja outfits. This is in America and you know it. So if you're in favor of this, by definition, when you have secret police and hiding their identities, and especially after they've committed a murder, we're still not allowed to know? Or a shooting, you don't think it's a murder, it's a shooting. But yes, of course we're allowed to know, they're public officers. So it's absurd to claim otherwise. And by the way, if you think they did the right thing, then you shouldn't mind. They say, oh, well, they could get harassed if we find out their names. Well, brother, if you got a situation where someone's breaking the law, threatening them, assaulting them, stalking them, let's charge those people, right? So that's not an excuse at all. So now when they talk about the body cams, who's right, who's right? They say, oh, we would have done the body cams, but we just didn't have enough money. You're giving away $50,000 signing bonuses, right?
Exactly.
You're swimming in money. Of course it's not the money. It's that they're finally giving into some little bit of pressure. So they're saying, okay, maybe we'll do body cams. Good. That's a start in the right direction. And I also have an anecdote about who joins ICE, not just these days, but historically, that I want to share with you. But did you?
Oh, so it's not about the money, huh? They're swimming in money for $50,000 signing bonus, but somehow can't afford body cams until funding becomes available. This is the kind of fiscal malpractice that makes you want to pull your hair out. It's a classic government shell game, folks. They always have money for pet projects, for grand gestures, for expanding their own power. But when it comes to basic common sense measures for transparency and accountability, suddenly the money is all bare. It's a complete joke. They're not just giving into a little bit of pressure. They're being dragged, kicking and screaming into the 21st century. They only act when they're caught with their hands in the cookie jar or when the public outreach reaches a fever pitch. Think about it. They're effectively saying, we'd love to be transparent, but it's just so expensive to buy a few cameras. But hey, here's 50 grand if you want to join our secret police force. It's an insult to the intelligence of every taxpayer. This isn't about budget constraints. It's about a deep-seated resistance to oversight and a preference for operating in the shadows. Don't fall for this bureaucratic smokescreen bullshit.
I just wanted to comment on what you had to say about ICE agents and Border Patrol agents wearing masks and how inappropriate that is. I mean, here's the thing. When you sign up for a job, you know what that job requires of you, right? So this idea that you don't want to be identified as a federal agent because you're worried about harassment is ridiculous to me. And by the way, we've been very consistent on this issue. So this is obviously nowhere near the same as working for Border Patrol or for ICE. But I remember covering a lawsuit that was carried out by a Muslim employee of, I believe it was an Abercrombie and Fitch, right? We had covered that. And she did not want to wear what the job required her to wear, including taking the headdress off. Okay, but you applied for a job where there's a certain look, right? There's a certain way that you're supposed to appear while you're on the store floor doing your thing. And if you're signing up for the job, then it means that you are going to concede to what is required of you in that job. In this case, why are you signing up to be a federal agent, a Border Patrol agent, and you're not going to want to identify yourself even though you are accountable to the American people because you're worried about harassment?
Yeah, so I remember covering a different story, also coincidentally about Muslims, but we covered 1,000 of these stories about many different people. So he was working at a grocery store,
Yes.
and he didn't want to touch any of the bacon or the ham products because he says it's against his religion. Well, and then he's like, so they should, whoever has ham products should be forced to go to a different cashier. No, brother, then don't take the job. The cashier has to handle all the products coming through. It's okay. You're a devout Muslim and you don't want to touch ham. Wonderful. Go take another job.
For you, yeah.
Yeah. It's a free country, but you can't enforce that on everybody else. But anyway, it goes to the obvious point of don't take the job if you can't do the job. And in our country, it's public law enforcement, and we get badges and we get faces, and we know what our law enforcement officers are doing to us, okay? So that's just part of the job. And the anecdote real quick, Anna, is, so a friend of mine told me this, and of course always take anecdotes with a grain of salt, but so he knew of someone who was trying to get a job as a cop, tried 3-4 times, couldn't get it. So he's like, fine, like, I'll just go to ICE. And ICE is like, come on in, no problem, right?
This is all ridiculous to me, and unfortunately ridiculous is an understatement. Masked thugs operating under the guise of state authority. That's not law enforcement. That's the hallmark of a tyranny regime, not a free society. When the government hides the identities of their enforcers, especially after a fatal incident, it signals a dangerous shift. It tells us they fear accountability more than they value public trust. This isn't about protecting agents from legitimate threats. It's about isolating them from the consequences of their actions. If someone truly believes they did nothing wrong, they shouldn't fear their name being known. In fact, transparency often builds trust, allowing the public to see the justice that's being served. But when you operate like a shawty kind of Secret Service police, you breed suspicion and resentment. The comparison to people who refuse to do their job's basic requirements because of personal beliefs is spot on. If you sign up to be a public servant, you accept the terms. You are accountable to the public, period. No mask, no anonymity, no excuses, anything less is a betrayal of the principles that this nation was founded on. And it opens the doors to unimaginable abuses of power. This is the hill we must all die on, folks. Transparency or tyranny. You make the choice.
They're on a hiring spree.
Yeah, so like some of these guys are rejected cops, right? And others are different. Like there's a whole giant range of them, right? But overall, like some of these guys are taking the $50,000 sign-on bonus have nothing to do with law enforcement officers. They were mowing lawns a couple of weeks ago, right? So we've got these untrained guys who've now kind of been unleashed in the streets, and they're anonymous because they're masked. And then even after they commit potential crimes, if the government tells us we can't find out, no, that's secret police, and we can't have it in this country.
No, we should not. I don't care where you land on the political spectrum. We should not be in favor of state-sponsored violence, and we should not be like, it's like secret police. Like, we shouldn't be okay with that. We should live in a free and open society. And if someone does issue threats against federal agents who are identifying themselves, well, then they should be investigated. They should face consequences for doing that. But the idea that the rest of us have to suffer by having, the state carry out, these operations with masked thugs is ridiculous to me.
So there you have it, folks. From crying doxing to magically finding money for bonuses, but not body cams, the excuses from DHS are as transparent as a brick wall. This isn't just about one single shooting. It's about a systemic problem where our government believes it can operate in the shadows, unaccountable to the very people it's supposed to be serving. We need to demand better. We need to demand transparency, accountability, and an end to these secret police tactics that have no place in a free society. Don't let them gaslight you with talk of safety when what they really mean is secrecy. So tell me, what do you think? Are these agents justified in hiding their identities? Is the government playing games with our trust and our tax dollars? Let me know in the comments below. Like this video, share it with everyone you know, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next deep dive into the truth. And as always, stay vigilant, Patriots. Stay vigilant.